So hi, I hope you have an amazing time at Digital Dragons. It's really a privilege and awesome feeling to be here at the stage once again. This time of presentation called Unleash the Curiosity, How to Build an Enticing Open World Game. I'm Magda Jankowska, and I work as open world designer in the unannounced open world game in a fantasy setting at Techland. My previous experience was connected with supporting Dying Light 1 as game designer. Besides that, I have more than 3 years of experience in mobile game development, where I was also a game designer. But you may think, why this topic? Why unleash the curiosity? I became super curious about how curiosity works and how connected in my daily work as open world designer. So open world games provide a lot of variety of experiences for players. Sometimes it's about the challenge, puzzle, competition, following an amazing story, and exploring fantastic world. As designers, we want to provide different content to let players explore the virtual world as they wish, based on their preferences and what in the moment guide them. Instead of specific direction, we need to design game content to invoke players' curiosity and support their inner desire of exploration. At Techland, we are also focused on creating unforgettable open-world experiences like in Dying Light and Dying Light 2. And, of course, with no exception for our new project, where we are focused on exploration, enticing world, waiting for the player to explore. But before we start, let me share a little story about my curiosity. And sometimes it's scary how mind can work. So, when I was in the mountains, and you can see on the screen my dog Luna, I heard a conversation about processes of witch hunt. And I heard only part of this conversation, and then real drama started. I was offline, so no Wi-Fi there. And my mind was focused on not on the beautiful landscape there, but on witch hunt. This topic was so off the record at this moment to me, so different than my daily routine, that I couldn't focus on anything. Eventually, when I got Wi-Fi on my smartphone, the first thing which I did was feeding my curiosity. And I was so curious that I started reading an article about last processes of witch hunt at the car parking. Then I found another article and read it when I came back home. In the article, there was a piece of information that many of the alleged powers with which witches were popularly credited included the control of thunder, rain, and sunshine. But when I was digging more about topics sun-related, I found that a small village in Poland. Budniki, that's the name of this village, is a special place in Poland where through 113 days there is no sun. And have you ever heard about Budniki village? Okay, so some of you might heard that. But if not, I can assure you it's worth to check how life without sun can look there. But back to the point. As you can guess, Budniki was the goal of my next research. To be honest, it didn't resolve any problems and didn't feed my curiosity properly. But you know what? It caused another question and another impulse. From Budniki, my curiosity was transferred to Norway. But why? I wanted to see if people were able to deal somehow with a lack of sun. And then I discovered sun mirrors in Ryukan. So installments bring a sun down to city square during winter months. A few weeks later, when I talked with my friends and told them about this whole research and investigation, beginning from Polish mountains, checking the Budniki case, and then Ryukan adventure, they stared at me like some weirdo. But this moment was a turning point for me, the moment when I started to investigate how my curiosity works and how I was and I could stimulate it. The whole process of getting from random conversation to witch hunt, to sun, to city square in Norway was so surprising for me that I decided to dive into the reason why I ended up with the research in Norway and why I was curious to search for more. And more importantly, how does it relate to open world games? When I started to think about it, my first thought connected me with my, of course, gaming experience and reminds me flashbacks of my favorite games where I spent too many hours and maybe sometimes too many. But when I left my gamer's perspective for a moment, I claim that my main goal as open world designer is evoking a desire to explore. But when you think about it, it's one of the most popular tasks in plenty of life areas and industries. In my work, I want to give the player freedom of exploration and ability to make a decision how, when, and which direction they should go, or which decision they should take. But how should I do that when the player can explore this content at any moment? How to guide, but not guide directly, or not guide players too much? How to find a proper balance and methodology? And they were really difficult questions for me, even if I still had the Budniki case in my mind. But all in all, I started to investigate the fact that deeper understanding of curiosity can help designers better use uncertainty techniques in games and thus improving the play experience. But sometimes it's easy to say, hard to do. This time was no different. It was difficult because we as designers, we have some sort of hunch what will invoke curiosity. But this is a kind of designer's intuition developed with years of experience and designing. We know what is crucial from game. We know that it's crucial for games, especially open worlds. And based on our experience, playtesting, research, we can gain more evidence and fundamentals of what exactly invoked this desire. But we are still in the process of getting proofs what is needed to invoke curiosity by purpose. And even if your release the curiosity intuition is well developed, it doesn't change one particular thing, which is influencing on someone's curiosity. And let's speak it loudly, working with players' curiosity is a tough job. We can do an open world design tricks, practice design shamanism, and purposefully create gameplay beats. But even there is a chance that we won't be able to trigger curiosity. It's the same situation when we have a picky eater at home and you are trying everything to interest him or her in the dinner, and it's a really tough job, right? But let me show you some of examples how to start, but to start with curiosity, of course. And let me ask one question. When and for what title, for the first time, publisher added items for the physical copy of the game? And I know that this question, it's not what you could expect at this moment of my presentation, but do you have any clue when, for the first time, gadgets were included to the game? Can you raise a hand up? Once again? Physical items. But if you know the answer, just please raise a hand up just to see if somebody knows an answer. But if you don't have an answer for now, please just remember this feeling of not knowing for now. So, curiosity is noted as a very important factor in design. For example, Greg Koshkian in Uncertainty in Games describes curiosity as a motivator to engage in games. Curiosity became also an important topic for scientists like Marcelo Gomez Maureira, Alexander Tu, and others. But let's go to the beginnings. What science and researchers say about curiosity. So, curiosity has rarely been considered as multi-dimensional state. Previously, curiosity was seen as intrinsically motivated desire for information. Curiosity was also viewed as a passion, an appetite. In the 19th century, scientists even referred curiosity to a pain, resulting from an unsatisfied knowledge drive. One of the first attempts in discovering the true reason behind curiosity was William James. He identified two types of curiosity, driven by emotions and by scientific wonder. In the 1950s, Dylan Berlin was one of the first psychologists to offer a comprehensive model of curiosity. He argued that we all seek the sweet spot between two deeply uncomfortable states: understimulation, like coping with tasks, people, or situations that lack the proper novelty, complexity, uncertainty, or conflict, and overstimulation. He also hypothesized on the level of stimulation. If the stimulation is too low, there will be no reason to explore, and if it's too high, it will result in anxiety. Berlin also distinguished other dimensions: perceptual versus epistemic, and specific versus diversive. Perceptual curiosity refers to the driving force that motivates organisms to seek out novel stimuli, which diminishes with continued exposure. Opposite perceptual curiosity was epistemic curiosity, which Berlin described as a drive to obtain information and acquiring knowledge, what he also described as different from other species. The rest dimensions, diverse curiosity, relates to just a bored person who searches for something to boost arousal, and specific curiosity, it's kind of opposite. A person who is overstimulated tries to understand how things work to reduce arousal. And when we become aware of missing information, when something changes from being known or, as we thought, to unknown state, then we become curious. This is the explanation of curiosity posed by behavior economist George Lowenstein in his information gap theory. And Lowenstein says curiosity happens when we feel a gap in our knowledge. But working with gaps of knowledge is a challenge. The first needed step is to understand the size of the gap and the challenge. If the gap is too small, crossing this gap isn't really a challenge, and a reveal might cause disappointment. Information gap perspective should be also connected to somebody's knowledge in a particular field. And To illustrate, imagine a person who knows only 2 of the 12 species of true foxes. And this person is likely to accept this state of knowledge and not move forward. However, a person who knows 10 species is more likely to see a gap of not knowing these 2 species. So then the attention is attracted. And this shift of attention is observed in our daily lives. So, for example, another example. Imagine you have a chance of winning a final battle with boss, and you hear that you have defined a percent chance of winning this battle. But when this percent increases, our minds are likely to reframe it and change focus on what can be lost. So instead of seeing, for example, a 90% chance of winning, we are likely to frame it as 10% of chance of losing. And the tricky part is to give the right amount of information to keep people interested. If a partial information is available, we want to know more about. Even if we start from 0, as information is acquired, at some point our mind will shift attention from what is known to what is unknown. But be really careful that the new information can change the perceived size, causing switch of attention, and we will be overwhelmed of what amounts of things are there to be known. Dr. Matthias Gruber is a principal research fellow from Cardiff University in UK, and most of his projects focus on neuroscience of curiosity. A couple of years ago, he conducted an experiment. He asked some participants a question, waited 14 seconds, and scanned their brain activity in the same time. After this time, the correct answer was revealed. The more curious somebody was to know the answer, the more their brain activity ramped up in the midbrain and nucleus accumbens. Those 2 areas are a part of dopaminergic circuit, also known as the brain's wanting system. So, literally, curiosity makes us more hungry for more information and help us to seek. And Dr. Matthias Gruber was also checking if simply being curious affects learning. And during these 14 seconds, he showed an unrelated picture with the experiment. And it turned out that picture was also better remembered in high curiosity state. And research showed curiosity is warming up your hippocampus to get ready to learn new informations. And what is extremely important, we should remember that curiosity recruits the same brain areas that are involved in extrinsic rewards. And basically, curiosity is its anticipation of cognitive reward. And based on Dr. Matthias Gruber's research, we know that in a high curiosity state, we absorb not only information we're interested about, but also other things around it. So curiosity is a vortex that draws in what you're motivated to learn and interest about, but also sucks in all other things around it. So to sum up, curiosity has been described both as a trait and as a state. And as a trait, it describes a person's individual disposition to becoming curious. And as a state, curiosity refers to how curious a person will be in a given situation. The knowledge that curiosity can be in these both stages gives us designers an option to better create open-world content. Player can have natural level of curiosity, but this level may be changed based on given situation. Recent work shows evidence for existence of 5 dimensions of curiosity. Each of these dimensions relates to different type of motivation. So people have different ways to experience curiosity and other motivations to seek information they are curious about. These dimensions were developed by Dr. Todd Kashdan of George Mason University, who has spent years studying curiosity. They are available, fundamental to create open world experience from my perspective, and now let me show you some examples. First dimension, joyous exploration, is motivated by novelty. So people feel desire to seek out new knowledge. They simply feel a joy of learning. A tendency to enjoy uncertainty, it's also present there. So, of course, these people will be attracted to discovering new places. And thanks to that, they will be stabilizing their knowledge about the world and its surroundings. But it should be connected with some kind of reward. Players can enjoy the exploration itself, but they will be disappointed when a game won't recognize their effort. And for designers, it's a chance to support a curiosity even further. Discovering the first item can show the existence of a gap and it can support players' curiosity to search for more. And it can be supported by visual, sound clues to the source of information. These clues can help us to define pattern, for example, that can be later broken to support other dimensions. They are also important due to supporting constant engagement, because locations can be a puzzle themselves. These moments of interaction not only support navigation, but they can build up the anticipation, which sometimes is even more important than a reward itself. Players can learn and connect some places as a source of defined resources. For example, in caves, I will always find a specific herb. Near the river, I will always find a herd of animals. Or roads are extremely dangerous and should be avoided. So, open world designers can create opportunities to learn and establish players' knowledge. First, seduce the players to a specific place, let them test and check. Motivated by novelty, they will experiment with game's content and check their abilities within other zones. But having in mind that this type of dimension is motivated by novelty, it's crucial to plan proper experience on the map. Of course, genre, player's persona can tell us in what density we should aim, but for sure it shouldn't be repetitive in a close proximity. Think about what the player will experience, see, or test if you run from one point to another. How many opportunities will be shown? In some cases, this density will be okay, but for other, this one. It's crucial to have in mind how much time it will take to finish an activity or other open world content, as well as how much time is needed to move between these spots. Established metric related to player speed and other form of players' transport, it's needed here to create a proper pacing to support curiosity. Based on that, as a designer, you can calculate if every play sessions are covered. For example, what if player has only half of an hour to play? What he's gonna do? If there is a lack of specific gameplay bits, or maybe it's too many and content is in defined zone started to be repetitive. Map can have also another layers, like zones connected to loot, spawned archetypes, general gameplay difficulty. everything properly put together, and we can give a player an opportunity to discover how all the things are connected with each other. And to support player, open world designer should also think about general overview on the content. One of the first things that players like to discover are high points on the map. Of course, they are attention-grabbing, and yeah, this will be the first point that player will try to reach. But it also helps player to search for the next vantage point on the map, and it creates a loop based on gazing and moving. So players are able to see from them open vistas, and generally bigger POIs provide more than one gameplay bit, so it's worth it to check what is inside them. And later on, player will move to other type of content. The player will learn how to differentiate content based on his motivation. So, for example, progression or learning more about the lore. So typology of POI helps in creating proper experience on the map and helps in avoiding repetitiveness of content, but also in creating spaces to breathe. Besides that is another opportunity to show information gaps. So, for example, the player who is going to a specific place to move forward with story can discover a place related to growth progression. Besides that, huge lore or progression reward can be placed in less traveled areas, encouraging the player even more to discover new things. Based on game's needs, designers can also support night experience and highlight important places to be visible from the distance. So based on these methods, we can let the player to be an explorer, but we can guide this by using range of activities, encounters, or just POIs in general. Another dimension, deprivation sensitivity, is motivated by a need of resolving. So people who experience it think about solutions, work all the time to resolve an issue, and feeling an information gap. So in opposite to Joy's exploration, deprivation sensitivity can provide not improvement in general well-being, but it's relentless seeking for information to escape the tension of not knowing. So learning new things and acquiring new skills satisfies a curiosity to continuously master new things. So the example how to work with this type of curiosity, it can be content based on puzzle, but not only an activity with puzzle as a main bit, but also facing an unknown. Discovering how game systems work separately and later on with each other. So players' motivation is to fill the gap, so the best way is to show that as much as possible that this gap is present by achievements you get, by different goal to reach, and generally showing a purpose. These players like a more controlled guidance. They need to know what they get from completing defined performance. We can also plan to include more information in loops and our open world content. For example, in activities we can leave clues, references, notes to another content, even if it won't be relevant at the moment. Based on attention switch rule, more and more information will stop to be a background, and player will switch his attention to what is missing, to fill the gap, and he will be seeking out for more. The third dimension, stress tolerance, is an ability to cope with uncertainty. So people who experience it want to explore, but they will stress while facing too big information gap or lack of confidence in abilities. So the great example to work with such type of curiosity and embrace players to move forward is to show something familiar, even if they face totally new and uncertain situation. So designers can include real events, references to people, sources of culture like movies or books to let players understand the game context based on understanding the context from another source. So this method, it's called syntonization. So these players can also start seek out other information, even using other sources. And on the screen, you can see one example of syntonization, Dying Light 1 version of World 1-1 from World 1-1 from Super Mario Bros. With tiny biters mimicking Goombas. World 1-1 is also a safe zone, so as the player, you can't use any weapon. You must jump on miniature zombies, and a reward for completing this level is pizza suits, which is another reference to Mario Bros. Franchise. And people with this dimension of curiosity can become annoyed and frustrated when they start to feel they're unable to fill a gap. Having in mind a concept of switching attention, in this case, it's crucial to plan open world experience based on how many information we want to provide. For less experienced players, we can provide some guidelines, show how close to the solution the player is, and increase this progression over time. The way how to naturally show the player that he should stay for his safe is to create some spaces like fog of war, climbing a tower to unhide the chunk of the map, of course with defined POIs to discover, but player then can decide if he wants to move forward without feeling forced. For more experienced players, this abstraction can be seen as worthy to explore from the beginning, and based on their preferences and experience from other games. The other trick can be combining a known threat and unknown reward. Player is aware of environment, knows that this danger exactly means, but curiosity of unknown, a reward, will encourage player to take initiative. But the case here is that we didn't increase a knowledge gap, a danger is known for the player, but the perspective of getting a reward is too seducing to ignore. Another supporter can be generally increasing a reward when a visibility is low, like in forests, to encourage players to move forward. Player may feel a risk due to limited visibility, but still there is something cool to get. The fourth dimension is overt and covert social curiosity, where people are interested in other people and desire to know what other people are thinking and doing by listening to, probing questions, talking and socializing with other people. Overt social curiosity is an interest in people's behavior, their thoughts, while covert social curiosity is about how details about other people are discovered, hearing about or reading about them. So, overt social curiosity is focused around understanding why people react in a defined way, what event or situations shape them. These players will observe, for example, NPC daily routines. They will want to talk to them. They will be curious what will happen with these people when a specific event in the game occurs. So it's a perfect chance to show differences in hubs or unlocking previous hidden content. Based on gathered information, player can better understand social, even if it's artificial life. Think what story your NPC will tell to the player, to what places they will go, what they will be doing there. All details here matter because even something like movement cycle will tell a story. In case of covert social curiosity, it's important to provide more indirect way to learn about social life. Players can just roam around and stop to hear some dialogues between NPCs, stop to look at poster or take a look at interior of the house to get a knowledge about NPCs' interest. It can be used to, for example, present a new important character or guide the player to interesting places that normally would be very hard to find. And the last dimension, thrill-seeking, focus on enjoyment of anxiety. And it's different because it's not diminished over time, but still increasing. It's not much about learning or growing, which is a central traits of joyous exploration and deprivation sensitivity. But the most important is the simply enjoying. And here is also an appreciation of being close, and in general, the most important thing is experiencing open world. So natural occluders, hiding areas and then revealing them, creating visible or non-visible paths which can guide player to POIs, can be anomalies. POIs connected with each other in a way that player will have to discover and figure out how to get to. This will be some methods that people with thrill-seeking dimension may appreciate. And the whole feeling can be supported by encounters to help to avoid a valley of boredom, and by placing POIs, for example, not directly on the road. So, because naturally, player will be drawn by road and paths, so placing open world content a little bit off the road make a better exposure and invitation to exploration. And while planning a map, think about amount of visible POIs in 360 view and based on player's height. So, for example, from ground level, player will see 3 POIs, from mid-level 4, and from highest points, for example, 6. And the amount of POIs can be differentiated based on game's needs or lore purposes, but it's good to keep in mind defined methodology because it will help to control the pacing, the tension, and generally placement of POI. Maybe it's too many and we show too much and kill a desire of exploration and curiosity it's killed, or too little of them and the player doesn't know what to do and where to go. For example, we can make a rule that between lore and growth POI, it can be a distance of 500 meters at least, or there is no two large POIs near each other. And like I said previously, based on player speed and other sources of locomotion, we know how much time it will take to reach these points and what we need to more to do if we want to provide meaningful content. And based on different dimensions of curiosity, researchers were able to identify also how they can be translated across clusters. So, as you can see, the fascinated scored high in all dimensions, especially in joyous exploration. Problem solvers scored really high on deprivation sensitivity, but it's less diverse than the fascinated. Empathizers, they are highest on social curiosity, but low on thrill-seeking. Avoiders scored generally low, but really low in stress tolerance. So for me, as open world designer, it's even more crucial to know that every content, POI, activity, encounter, is basically a micro world where all dimensions should overlap with each other. So here's a summary. So first, the most important, always recognize players' effort. Reward the player even with small things. Something is still better than nothing. Build a variety of players' preferences when it comes to curiosity, and take care about different dimensions of curiosity while planning your open-world experience. But it's also important to place them properly. Avoid focusing too much on one type of experience, and the best, keep it layered. Grab players' attention using different techniques and guide him to content that maybe wasn't in his field of interest at the beginning. Important thing, balance in information gap. Not small, not predictable, but also not too large. Value of missing information should remain constant as specific information is obtained. So provide connections between your open-world content and design, and think how many info player will get after reaching of completing your activity. And very important thing, your player's persona is your guide, and it will tell you in what density and type of content you should aim. And it can be a rule of 30 seconds intervals to see something interesting. It can be a rule of 2 minutes if it's needed. So, instead of asking, how curious are you? Ask, how are you curious? And if you were dying to know when and for what title for the first time developers added items, physical items, to the copy of the game, here is an answer. The first items were attached to the game deadline from 1982. And developer couldn't add more text due to the limit of disk space, so creators added gadgets of in-game solving cases like photo from the crime scene, police interrogation notes, a letter from family's lawyers, and pills. And of course, these pills were candies. And these pills were found at the crime scene. And it's been also a time where there was a really big problem with piracy. So thanks to gadgets, piracy issue has dropped, and other developers started to see a potential in this idea. So I hope that based on research, you will remember this info as well as content from my presentation. Thank you. Of course, if there is any question, I will be happy to answer. But if not, don't worry, I will be at Techland booth, so if you want, you can just come say hi and ask some questions. 3, 2, 1. So, thank you once again.
Thank you very much.